What is going on, guys? Wow, first time talking this morning. Will Brooks here with another session of the Thoughts Out Loud experiment. This is session 61. It is Tuesday here in Korea, about 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:09 to be exact. And coming off of a pretty interesting Monday. It didn't actually go as according to plan, to be completely honest. If you caught yesterday's session, the plan, bye Reggie, the plan was to actually get with uni, finish up some writing because writing Monday is writing day. That uh, we'll get into that in just a second. Um, what ended up happening is we did not get together. We got together, but we didn't get together about writing day specifically. I actually do conversational English over the phone with a Korean college professor. You may have heard me mention this in the past. Who he speaks very good English. Excuse me. He speaks very good English, but he doesn't have anybody around him to speak it to. So he eventually he needs if he doesn't speak it, he'll eventually lose it. So what he does is he tries to we've come to an agreement where we'll talk and we will have conversations and he'll retain his English a lot better. And I think he really gets the better end of the deal. We end up talking a lot. We end up talking a lot of spending a lot of time talking during a week, but I learned a lot from him. And so yesterday, he sent me a message saying he wanted to chat or wanted to have a conversation. And I said, okay, that's cool. And so he usually sends an article. This is why it gets really interesting. He sends an article related to his job. He's an industrial hygienist, and he does a lot of fighting for the little guy, so to speak, to make these big conglomerates. If you don't know about life in Korea, if you don't know about Korea or the way things are in Korea, these huge conglomerates, the companies have a lot of power, a lot more than they have in the states. Maybe I don't know, a lot more than what they're supposed to have, than what they allude to have in the states. In any case, there's no illusion here. The companies just have power. They have control because they make up a huge portion. Particularly the conglomerates make up a huge portion of the income that comes into the country or the country's income. So in any case, he stands up for the little guy who is working for these conglomerates in harsh conditions that cause uh, birth health effects later on after an extended period of time. Does a lot, particularly in the semiconductor industry. And yesterday he sent me a message and said he wanted to talk about the air pollution here in Korea. We call it microdust or yellow dust, yellow sand. It goes by a bunch of different names. But I was able to do something with that call. Once he sent that call, I was like, or once he sent that text and he said that's the topic that he wanted to talk about. We talk about it very often, to be completely honest, but I've never sat down and actually got a professional's uh, I've never actually structured a conversation with him and got his professional opinion on microdust because it's really big in the springtime. And since it's just becoming spring now, this is the only time that it's like on everybody's mind. This is the time of the year where it's on everybody's mind the most. In any case, I figured, hey, let me double tap this. Since I'm not going to get to write the thing I wanted to write, let me kind of uh, how can I take advantage of this? How can I not so much exploit them, but how can I like maximize the efficiency of this thing that's going to happen anyway? And I've been trying to do that a lot lately. I'll get to that in just a second. But so what I did was I sat down with Uni. I said, "Hey, do you have any questions about microdust?" And then Uni jumped on it and said, "Oh, I mean, I got so many questions about microdust, and I've been asked so many questions about microdust by like foreigners, people that live here in our apartment complex, or her friends that she encounters during work or wherever she is when she's around. They always have so many questions about microdust. Awesome, like the pollution in Korea. Awesome. So let's not awesome that we have pollution, but awesome that this. She just kind of validated my concern or my thought process of going ahead and using this time to ask him questions. So she and I sat down. She came up with about 10 questions. I built in another 5 or 6 on top of her questions, and I actually sat down with the professor and had like a little informal interview. Now, I'm stuck a little bit because the professor is not comfortable being on the podcast. He's not that comfortable with his English, although his English is great. But so I said, okay, well I can't do that. Well, what else do people do when they can't? I've heard people have interviews when people aren't there, and what they do is they do kind of like a written interview or a phone interview, and they just recap their answers. So what I did, I had the conversation with him, asked those questions, and had them written down so I wouldn't forget, and I kept it a little structured, and I got a little interview practice because I need to start doing more interviews on the podcast, and it's easy to have a conversation. It's hard to interview a person on a podcast because you have to constantly be imagining your audience, your listeners, as a fly on the wall listening to the conversation. And sometimes things get said that you understand and the person you're interviewing understands, but you have to be sure to remind yourself, hey, the audience might not know if they aren't as familiar with the topic that we're talking about as as the two of us are, myself and the interviewee. So, um, so it worked. So what I did, I said, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and interview him, record his answers, but I won't put those on the podcast. I'll just recap his answers. I'll do a podcast episode where I recap his answers and and explain the question that I asked him and give and just reiterate, rephrase his answer. So I recorded it all in OBS. I have the whole conversation recorded. I'll just go back, listen to it, make my bullet notes, make bullet points about what he said in response to each question, and kind of organize it because we didn't go in order of the questions, but he still touched on all the topics. So it was a great way. It was a great way to double tap. I'm really proud of myself the way I double tapped that. The way I said, okay, let's take this situation because it's kind of unfortunate that because I wanted to work on one thing, and I found myself working on another thing. But I can act if I use this correctly, and if I actually take action, and when I actually take action, and when I use this correctly, I can kind of propel myself into that state. Well, welcome back, Reggie. Into that state where I can actually get to the point where I'm batch creating podcasts again. Because it's only Tuesday. If I record that today and then record again Wednesday, I have 2 podcasts in a hole, and I can, or kind of in the slot or the shoot or whatever you want to call it, and I can just continue on and try to keep creating podcasts and slot those to go live on their respective days because the podcast only happens once a week. Um, so and then I actually this week's podcast episode isn't about microdust, so I if I once I get this done, I have like next week's podcast episode ready to go. So we could try to knock both of those out tomorrow or today because I actually the house should be empty today. The point is, try to double tap wherever you can. It's just a great idea. It's a great concept to just do something you're going to do anyway, and kind of gather or do information for your little project. So if you're packing up and getting ready to move anyway, Sharon, then it's awesome that you're able to double tap and create content while you're packing. Or like what I do, if like we want to share all kinds of information about Korea, if I'm going somewhere with my family anyway, I just take a few moments, gather some extra information, and share that information either in my social media outlets or actually make an actual vlog about it, or make a video about it, So it's just, I love it. I get so excited when I double tap like that. And you get content out of something you were going to do anyway. Like, I mean, I don't know. There's so many times I'm planning out content and I have to go out of my way. I'm going out of my way to do it. The I don't know, the gaming collaboration I did, I very rarely ever go to Electronic Market anymore because I don't shop there that much anymore, as we mentioned in the video. But yeah, I'm going out of my way to go there. The Makale joint, that was kind of, we had to plan that out. We're going out of our way, but like little things like we're trying to go, like I got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. And then Saturday, Sunday, of course. So I got a 5 day coming up, and we're going to be doing a lot of family things. We want to share a lot of family things with other people. We're going to this indoor climbing gym. We're going to be there anyway. So vlog about the indoor climbing gym, right? So that's, I don't know. It's just awesome to double tap. Um, I can't say that. I can't say that enough. Like, keep your eye out for those opportunities to do so. And if you're eating, breathing, sleeping your passion or your project, if you always have it on your mind, I always have Soul Weaver on my mind. So I always see opportunities where I can go ahead and put that into place. I want to talk about that later on this week as well, because it's awesome. It's very, very beneficial to completely be almost consumed by your project and or whatever you're trying to do, your business and things like that. I feel I can't call Soul Weaver a business because I ain't making no money on it. So that's why you hear me say project instead of business, or hobby, or passion, whatever I call it, because you can't call it a business if it's not bringing in no change. There's no monetization plan for Soul Weaver as of yet. I'm not against it. There's nothing in the works. We'll eventually come up with a product. Maybe we'll write a book or something like that that's supposed to be full of tips, or to be full of tips and help people out. But that's so far down the line, I can't even think of what it would be. So, with that said, the plan for today um, is to go ahead and get that podcast episode recorded. Go through the information we got from the recording, from the podcast, or from the conversation yesterday. Answer those questions, kind of structure that answer, pull the value out of that conversation, and structure it up into the questions, and then go ahead and record the podcast episode. It might be a little long because we talked for an hour. I gotta condense all that information in there. So that's what I got going on today. Hope your day went well yesterday. Did things go according to plan? Did you start your week strong? If you're in the States, you're probably starting your week now. Let me know what your plan is to start strong with what you got going on. If you like this video, go ahead and hit like. If you want to see more Thoughts Out Loud as part of my daily routine, go ahead and subscribe, because I'll be back here tomorrow with another session of Thoughts Out Loud session. With another session of the Thoughts Out Loud experiment. See you then. Have a good one.